I am Roger Heft.
All right. Well, I'm just excited to have this conversation with you, Roger, because you're somebody I really respect, and I know you have a real strong relationship with Christ.
Yeah, I respect you too. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So I'd like to just start off by hearing your story about what was your life before you accepted Christ.
Well, I'll tell you, Eric. You know, my family growing up. I'll just go back to that. My parents are a lot of people in the church probably know Earl and Ruth Heft. And they're my parents, and their um, life that they lived were great examples to me what a Christian couple's supposed to look like, and they took you to church and but you go to church and you hear all the Bible stories and all that stuff, and it just sounds like stories. And you just go through life and you're living a kid and the just thinking about where I grew up till I was 9. Uh, the It was a normal childhood, and shoot, I loved being outside, and we played hide and seek with the neighbor kids, and it didn't seem like I was home very much. Just in the evenings and to eat, and it seemed like I was outside all the time riding bikes and everything. Anyway, I don't know how old I was, probably 5 or 6. One of the neighbor kids was picking on me. I don't know, I might have been younger than that, but he was a good bit bigger than I was. And so my only defense to that was to bite him. Yeah. So anyway, my nickname as a kid was Chopper. So
Because you had some good chops.
yeah. So anyway, that was my only way to battle that confrontation there. But anyway, I my parents dealt with that, and so I guess I was probably just kind of a normal kid. I was kind of quiet and just growing up, just having fun as a kid.
Yeah.
And anyway, I was probably in the 7th grade, and my parents, I was struggling through school, and my parents decided to get me out of the public school system because I wasn't getting the help that I needed. And I had trouble reading and, just comprehending things. But anyway, they sent me to Belper Christian Academy.
Okay.
And anyway, there were,
And that's by Calvary.
Calvary Community Church. Yes. And so anyway, I met a lot of people there, and they're still friends today.
Really?
Of course, Oscar and Julie Grog.
Oh, they went there too?
They went there too.
Oh,
yeah.
That's
Oscar and I were good friends there. We played basketball together and softball, and we developed that relationship there at the school. And so that Christian influence on me was really kind of through my whole life, but I didn't really have it in my heart.
Yeah.
A lot of that was in my head, and
kind of just kind of going through the routine of it, huh?
Yeah, really, and kind of growing up. And I remember my dad told this story, and I couldn't figure it out till later on in life, but they were in the middle of trying to decide where to go to church. We grew up at Mullen Memorial Baptist in Belpre. And anyway, he said he remembered driving down the road, and the Lord showed him that there was a division in the road. You know, if you stay on this road, you're going down the wrong way. You go down this road, that's the right road. Right road.
Really?
And down this road was pointing to Porterfield Church.
Wow, that's
And
awesome.
so, anyway, him and Mom moved and started coming to Porterfield then.
Yeah. Do you know what year that was?
1972.
1972.
1972.
That was the year before I was born.
There you go. So
You were young. You were young though.
That makes me feel really old. Yeah.
How old were you though? You were probably.
I was 9.
Yeah.
So I was born in '63.
Yeah.
So So anyway, we started coming to Porterfield, and I think I may. It's something. I think I may have accepted the Lord probably around 11.
Okay. Yeah.
And, I went forward and got baptized, but, it still wasn't here in my heart.
Yeah.
So.
Do you think that was more of an expectation that you feel like people had around you, or do you feel like it was probably sincere, but just not as noteworthy as maybe?
I don't know, because I remember, your heart pounding out of your chest when you went forward, and I don't know if it was just because I was embarrassed or, I knew that was just something that I was supposed to do or what, I don't know, but excuse me. But anyway.
Now, did you have Fannie Mae as your teacher or anything?
Fannie Miller?
Fannie Miller, sorry.
Fannie Miller, yes, I did.
I heard stories about her.
Yeah.
She was good, but she was tough.
She was rough. Yeah, she was tough. And she was kind of, some people, well, us kids thought she was mean. And, but man, she hugged you and loved on you. And you knew she loved you and she loved the Lord. Right. Just stuff that she taught.
So some of the things that she did, you kind of respected in the end.
I'm sure. Yeah, most definitely. Even at the time, you were really more scared of her than when you were a kid. Anyway, came here to Porterfield, and I remember going forward and getting baptized and stuff, but going to the Christian school, it was kind of like you were doing the right things and everything, and it, I don't know, I just don't feel like it was really in my heart.
Yeah.
And, you get into mischief and stuff as a teenager and I liked cars and kind of driving fast, and one time I wrecked one of my dad's cars.
Oh no.
And
I bet your dad was not happy at all.
Oh no, he cut my license up.
Oh really?
Yes, he cut my driver's license up.
Oh.
And that was I think that was right before my 18th birthday. And so
well, how'd you get it back?
Well,
you get back to the DMV.
Get it. Really, I did. Once I turned 18, it's kind of like, well, shoot, I can get my license. So anyway, I got my license back, and but as time went on, it just didn't feel like, I don't know, Christ. I don't know. It just.
Well, I think what you're describing is you felt like as you got older, you're probably starting to feel that distance between you and God a little bit because,
exactly.
Just wasn't the same.
Yes, exactly.
And you knew something was wrong. And I think that kind of leads you to what happens next, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember one night going to bed kind of late, and I think it was Mother's Day weekend, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, I went to bed kind of late, and went to sleep, and I heard somebody say my name. So, I woke up, looked around, and I was like, that was weird. So went back to sleep, and I heard that again.
Yeah.
And it was so distinguished, I guess. I thought it was so audible that I got up. I thought it was my dad. I got up, went in their bedroom. They were sleeping. I go into the bathroom. I was like, that is so weird. So I go back and lay back down, and I don't know if I went to sleep or not, but I felt this urge and this thought come into my mind. You need to go to Pastor Mark Eaton's.
Yeah.
And, and I remember looking at the clock. It was like 1:30 in the morning, and I was like, he's not going to be up. What in the world? And tried to get back to sleep, and it was just, constant. So finally I got up, and, that took maybe 5 minutes to get from where we were living to his house at the time. And the whole time I'm thinking, this is just ridiculous. What in the world is going on, So I turn on Sycamore Street there in Belpre. And as I was driving down the street, I'm thinking, he's not going to be up. He's not going to be up. Lo and behold, that was the only house that had any lights on at 1:30 in the morning.
That's awesome.
And he lived clear down on the end of the street on the right. And, so I pulled in the driveway and got out, walked up to the door and pecked on the door. And, I'm still thinking, this is just stupid. So anyway, here comes Mark to the door. And, of course, he's Mark. And, well, hey, what are you doing? Oh, what in the world, And I told him what had happened. And I said, I think I need to recommit my life to the Lord.
Wow.
He's like, absolutely. He said, just come on in. And, and he led me through some scriptures, and we prayed, and that was really when I knew Christ was in my heart.
Yeah.
And that was at 22. And, if something would have happened to me before, I believe God would have saved me, but I didn't really, it wasn't really in my heart.
Yeah.
And
it really brought you and Christ closer in that moment, and just rededicating your life and having that rekindled, that flame and that passion, right?
It was awesome.
So, that's a tremendous story. I think that's so powerful. Two things you shared. One was your dad's story about the fork of the road, and then this story about how God can speak to you, just like in a dream almost. That God's trying to get your attention.
Well, and like he was saying, it was so obvious that what the Lord wanted him to do. He couldn't vary from that. So that was a big decision that they made. They had been praying about it, and
I'm sure that those stories, just like your rededication, has kind of fueled you to kind of continue to seek God in your life.
Yeah, I did, and it's crazy, Eric, because I know I had that acceptance. I'd given my life to the Lord at 22, but as you go through life, I'd lived kind of, just kind of day by day and doing it on my own up till that point. It's just really hard a lot of times to, just completely change overnight. But I know I was changed in my heart, but it's harder to get your body and your mind to, conform to that.
So are you saying there was habits that maybe you were doing that you had to break? And
that's exactly right.
And God was kind of working through you slowly, not like it was all of a sudden, but just...
Yeah, so anyway, I'm out of school, and I'm trying to decide what to do, so I go to welding school, and I had a couple of different jobs and fabrication shops, and then I ended up getting a good job at a plant, but I just still... I don't know, there was just still something that wasn't really complete in my life, I guess. And I was real unstable, not the fact that I was unstable, but I just wasn't resolved, had a peace in my heart, I guess is what I can say.
Yeah.
I had the peace that I knew where I was going if I died, but my life wasn't quite right. And anyway, I remember talking to my mom about it, and I worked at a really good job for 2.5 years, and I quit that job and went to welding school again. And this is another God thing. When I left Belpre to go to Troy, Ohio, I went to a church that a pastor, Doug Peters,
Mm-hmm.
he was a pastor at the church in Troy, and he used to pastor Mullen Memorial Baptist Church, where my parents went to church.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you know that, or you didn't
Well,
know at the time?
my mom and dad knew it, and they told me, hey, you need to look these people up. Here's his church.
Oh, okay.
Well, anyway, once I got up there and got established, and I went to that church, and me and his son became good friends, and I met some other folks there in the church that we've been good friends, and one of those guys ended up being a missionary in Bolivia.
Oh, wow.
And
That's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, I was still searching, and I got out of welding school, and I had to find work. So I ended up in Dillon, South Carolina.
Wow.
And
I had no idea you went that far.
there was a job that I found through the welding school down there, and so I took off and went to Dillon, South Carolina, and I didn't know where I was going to live, so I lived in a tent.
Oh, wow.
At a campground. And,
how many weeks did you do that? For a while?
Probably a couple months.
Wow.
Yes. So anyway,
That's roughing it.
Yeah, well, it wasn't bad. I kind of enjoyed it, really.
They had a bathhouse, I'm sure.
Yeah, oh
right?
yeah. Yeah, they had a bathhouse. But anyway, the people there at the campground, now I can't remember what year it was. It was September of '89, I believe. And there was a Hurricane Hugo was coming inshore.
Yeah.
And, of course, I think it was like a Category 4 big hurricane. And anyway, the folks there at the campground took me in their house and said, hey, you need to, well, they offered for me to stay there, but there was a fellow that I worked with that he invited me to their house and stay. So I went and stayed at their house for a few days and found an apartment in the upstairs of this lady's house. And anyway, you got to, it's probably about a 35-minute drive to work. And, we started working long days and 6-7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day. And, so you didn't have a lot of time to go to church, and and you just I was really more worried about working and making money, and so there was a guy that was a foreman on that job that he was a Christian, and he was my foreman, and he invited me to church one day, and he went to a Pentecostal church. And,
a little different for you.
It was a lot different. Yes, it was. And anyway, I somehow it worked out where I went to church with him a couple times, and I remember their pastor at the end of the service coming up to me and asking me if he could pray for me. And I'm just kind of like, yeah. So that guy prayed over me, and and he told me the Lord. Well, he said he knows the Lord was going to bless me with a good wife, and and he it seemed like he was prophesying all this stuff to happen
Yeah.
for me, you know, and anyway, he was done, and I kind of felt funny, not, it just felt weird having somebody praying
Yeah.
over you like that in a congregation or whatever. But I left there, and it just, I don't know. Once again, I just didn't feel that good relationship with the Lord. It was all, it was more all about me.
Yeah. Well, I think that you're describing what most people go through at times. A journey where it's, maybe at times it's close, and then you grow distant.
Yeah.
Then you're close again, and
yeah, I think
so
that's
it sounds like that's kind of where you were growing up, and even in your early 20s there.
Yeah, I think so.
So what brought you back to this area?
So I ended up working construction, moving around different jobs, and
All over South Carolina?
no, well, I'll tell you this quick story.
Sure.
When I was in South Carolina, I was running around with people that weren't Christian, but when I could go to church, I would, so you kind of fall into some lifestyles that you shouldn't get into, and everything, and I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't know how I was going to get out of that situation, out of those situations. I was kind of ending a long distance relationship with an individual, and you just kind of wonder how you was going to get out of that. Well, I remember my cousin Beth Rumpel, about once a week she would call me, and she would pray with me on the phone.
Really?
And I remember one night in my apartment laying there in bed, and it felt like there were, best I can describe it, is like demons coming down, from the ceiling or whatever. And I was scared to death. And I remember just saying Jesus' name, I just kept saying that over and over. And I finally went to sleep and went to work, and it was kind of in the middle of the week. And I remember being up in the pipe rack, and there was an individual walking through, and he stopped and talked to a couple people. Anyway, he motioned for me and this other guy to come down, and I thought, oh no, safety guy, So anyway, I got down out of the pipe rack, and and he chatted with us for a few minutes, and he said, hey, you guys wouldn't be looking for a job, would you? Kind of like, no, we're working,
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I remember he handed me a piece of paper, and he said, you need to call this number. And he said, they're looking for pipe welders, and call this number, and you probably get you a job. So it might have been a day or two later, I called that number, and it was in International Falls, Minnesota.
Oh, wow.
And, so here I am in warm South Carolina, and they're wanting me to go to International Falls, Minnesota. So,
Yeah.
Luckily it was kind of in the spring, but so I called the number. The guy said, yeah, come up, take a test. So I went up, took a pipe test, and passed it. They put me to work, and it was at a paper mill. And I remember the general foreman took me out and was taking me down through the paper mill. And if you've never been in a paper mill, it's just this huge, long building, 200 or 300 yards long. And it has all these great big rolls in it.
Wow.
For paper to run across and stuff. And I remember walking down through that. He was telling me all about what was going on. And walking down through that building, there was this one individual coming from the other end, and I kept looking at him, and I was like, who is this guy? Well, he kept walking straight to me, and anyway, he finally gets there, and he's like, "Hey, this is going to be your foreman." And that guy put his arm around me, and he said, "Man, I have been waiting on you for a long time."
Really?
And I'm just like, "What? What?" So he put his arm around me, and he said, "Come on, you're with me now." And the first question he asked me was, "Do you go to church?"
Oh,
And,
that's awesome.
yes, it is. And I said, "Well, yeah, I have my whole life, but," I said, "I haven't lately, you know." "Well, that's perfect," he said. He said, "You're in good hands now." Well, ended up, he was leading a Bible study
Oh,
at a church that had shut down in this town.
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he was leading this Bible study for people on that job site. And, so
Yeah. That's
anyway,
great. So he did a real missionary type work by
yes,
ministering to people that were at work
yes,
and reaching them for
yes,
Christ. So that's
yes.
really cool. So he was mentoring you.
Yes, he was. So
Yeah.
anyway, he made sure I was going to church,
Yeah.
and but anyway,
And it was nice because that was right off the bat when you got there. That
yes,
you weren't you left the crowd in South Carolina that you were hanging around maybe,
yes,
and in this
yes,
new atmosphere in this new area. It's neat that God used the one guy to tell you, hey, you need to call this number, and then for you to get the job up there, and then
exactly.
your first
If that
encounter.
one guy was an angel, I have no idea.
Yeah, yeah.
If they're,
Yeah.
and but anyway, and I remember asking a couple people who the guy was, and nobody really knew.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
and that
interesting.
was just kind of weird. And I remember asking the foreman that was a Christian, "Hey, do you?" I don't even know. I don't think he even had a name, but anyway, I told him what had happened, and he said, "Do you know who it would have been?" He said, "No, I have no idea who that was."
Oh, that's really.
So yeah, it was just kind of interesting. But anyway, that going to that job was like a defined line
Yeah.
of where my life completely changed.
How many years were you there?
I was not there, but about 10 months.
Really?
Yeah.
But that was really effective in those 10 months.
That was a very effective decision. But when I was there, I also was healed. I rubbed snuff, and I developed a sore in my mouth, and
wow.
that sore was really big. That even when I talked, that it would catch on my teeth, and it hurt really bad.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I quit, and I had not had any tobacco in my mouth for several weeks, and I was really getting worried about it. And one night at a Bible study there, that foreman said, "Hey, anybody have any prayer requests or whatever?" And I said, "I sure do." And he's like, "Well, what is it?" And I told him, and he said, "Well, do you care if we pray for you?" And I'm like, "No." And he said, "Well, get down here on the floor," and he said, "We'll lay hands on you." And I was kind of, wow, I've never had this before,
Yeah.
So I did, and they prayed for me, and, I didn't feel anything, special or whatever, and it was really felt good that, you had Christian people praying over
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
And anyway, I got up, and, the evening went to bed, got up the next morning, and I remember brushing my teeth, and I was like, "Hey, my lip doesn't hurt." And I looked at that sore in my mouth, Eric, and it was almost gone.
Wow. That's
And
awesome.
I'd had that sore for probably a month or 2 months maybe in my mouth. And by the next morning, it was all nothing but a little red spot on the inside of my
Praise
lip.
the Lord.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I really, truly believe that the Lord healed me from that
Yeah.
sore.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so from that point on, whenever you see something in your life happen like that, how can you not believe that there's a God? And
yeah, some people are waiting for miracles, but when miracles do happen, we have to notice them and take them serious.
yeah. So
because that's definitely a defining thing.
That's
That's all right. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's okay.
You care if I turn?
Oh, it's fine. So let's talk a little bit about the lows. I mean, I think you kind of interspersed some lows in your life, but what were some of the lows of that time in your life? I guess maybe highlight this for me.
The lows, probably the lows are doing things that you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And
because you were taught right, and then
yes.
you did it anyhow, right? So
That's
then
exactly right.
you're probably dealing with a lot of the guilt of that too, or like you had that conviction, because you knew,
most definitely, and I don't really want to get into any of the details, the specific details, and and it's kind of, I've told, well, we'll get back to that. My wife Tana, I've told her a lot that, I can't even believe that I was that person, back then, comparing it to now. And the question you asked earlier was what led me back to this area. Well, I'd worked several construction jobs, and every time I'd go to one, I would be influenced by a Christian person.
That's awesome.
And it is. I mean, and when you go looking back, and it happens so much, how could you not believe God is guiding you in your life, And so anyway, I was working in Pennsylvania at this time at another paper mill, and Mark Eaton, he called me up one day and said, "Hey, you wouldn't be interested in a job, would you?" And I'm like, what do you mean? I said, "I'm working." Well, he said, "It'd be a job back home here." He said, "I don't know if you, and anyway, he said, I know a fellow that one of the local plants here was looking for somebody that had welding experience, and he asked me if I knew of anybody, and he said, I thought of you, so that's why I'm calling." And I said, "Well, yeah, I'd be interested." And anyway, I remember coming back home for Thanksgiving, and I interviewed for the job that I have now at Orion.
Oh, wow.
And by February, they had called me and asked me if I'd come to work. And March of '93, I started work at, back then it was Degussa, but anyway.
It's been through some changes.
Yeah. So I started working there as a production operator, and and I've been there 31 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. And now I got out of operations and got into maintenance, and I'm a maintenance mechanic, vibration analyst. And so anyway, that's what I've been doing for 30, I've been there at the plant. But that cool brought me back to the area.
It's kind of cool how Mark kind of brought you in that time.
Mark
you needed someone to pray.
Tremendous influence on me.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that brought me back into the area in '93. And I thought, well, I better get into a church. Well, for whatever reason, I didn't come back to Porterfield. I guess maybe I didn't want to be that close to my family or something. I don't know.
Well, I think that probably, you being on the road for so long, you're kind of used to doing your own thing, and maybe, I don't know either, but I'm sure that you probably thought, well, maybe I don't really want to go back there.
Yeah. So anyway, I went back to Mullen.
Oh, okay.
And I think Mark may have been there at that time. I don't recall. But anyway, that is where I met my wife, Tana.
Oh, she went there.
And she went there.
Okay.
she was at college though, or she'd graduated college, and she was working in Mansfield, I believe, or maybe Reynoldsburg, I think, up next to Columbus. And anyway, I got to talking to her one Easter, one day at church, and just kept talking to her. And the strange thing about it is, looking back, her parents had me in kids' church.
Really?
When I was a little kid.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes.
Yeah, when you were there at Mullen.
When I was at Mullen when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And her cousin, or my cousin, Beth, and her, the same girl that prayed for me on the phone, Beth and her were best friends growing up. Tana's 5 years younger than I am.
Uh-huh.
So I had kind of always known who she was, but I guess I didn't really see her until she was a woman. I don't know. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got to talking, and it wasn't long. When you talk to Tana, she's a special person.
Yeah.
And
it's neat. It's neat, like you said, that to see how God's worked in your life, that even in the midst of you going through the struggles that you were going through, God's hand was always with you. And even, you were just a few people away, or one person away from being with the person that you're supposed to be with the rest of your life.
Yes.
That's really
just
neat.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
So that kind of leads me to talk about the highs. I think that would be a high, but what are some other highs? I know that you have some great kids, and you want to talk a little bit about them and being a dad.
Yeah, I do. I really thank God for Tana, and she's just a real blessing, and I really. Sorry,
this is good.
But anyway, she is just a tremendous person, and God brought us together at the right time, because if it would have been before, it probably wouldn't have worked out.
She wouldn't have had anything to do with it.
Yeah, she probably wouldn't have. She probably wouldn't have. And so God brought us together at the right time. And, it's just been a tremendous, we're celebrating our 30th anniversary this summer.
Yeah.
And, so there was a lot of change there 30 years ago for me, 32 years ago, and just a huge change. It's just been a blessing ever since. And, and then as we fell in love and married, we have 3 tremendous kids that I'm really proud of them. And
you guys have done a tremendous job with them.
I give all that credit to God and my wife,
Well, you want to talk a little bit about them, each one of them, or?
Yeah, I do. Hannah, I'm really proud of her, and all 3 of them I'm really proud of. She's
your oldest, right?
Yeah, she's the oldest. I have 3: Hannah, Will, and Nathan. But Hannah, she's the firstborn, and we always thought she was going to be a boy just because the way Tana was carrying her and everything, and well, she ended up being a girl. So anyway, but Tana has always liked the story of Hannah in the Bible, and so we talked, and that's what we wanted to name her after, and the kids growing up, they just haven't really given us a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And God has really blessed us that way, with wonderful kids. And, I can't say enough good stuff about them, but they grew up, went through your youth group, and your influence and Adam's influence on their life and not only you guys, but all the kids in kids' church,
Absolutely.
or all the parents that help, the volunteers that help in kids' church. It's not really everything that we have done. It's everything that the church body has done for our family. And, the influence that volunteers have on kids' lives
Absolutely.
in the children's ministry area is really tremendous.
It really does take a community of believers, and like you guys had a group of people, families that you guys were in fellowship with together, in life groups and small groups. So
yeah, that's right. And you mentioned that, and we were talking about the kids, but you mentioned life groups and family groups. Tana and Trisha Ball went to school together.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And Trisha was a little bit younger. And, of course, Trish grew up in Porterfield, and she was a lot younger than I was, but I knew who she was growing up. And anyway, once got back here and married and had kids, Matt and Trish, came back to the area, started having kids. Well, Ryan and Hannah were pretty close to the same age. And, and Matt and Trish, we just kind of connected with them and, and they've made a huge impact on our kids' life. And,
well, I think what you're sharing there too is like your kids, can see you as parents, but if they see other people outside of just the parent set that love the Lord and see the Lord, then it just builds a network of people that they see Christ in you, but then they also see Christ in others around them.
That's exactly right. That's a very good point, and I can't fail to mention Greg and Beth Daniels, and same with them. Their kids were a lot of they're a little bit older, but kids were growing up same age and stuff, and their influence on my kids' life was tremendous. But going back to my kids, you talk about Hannah.
Sure.
She's married to a youth pastor right now, and they went to Cedarville University. She was early childhood education major, and got a bachelor's in that. And she's right now going back to get her master's in sign language and
cool.
vision impaired.
Wow.
Where she can read Braille and stuff, and so she's just really devoting her life to the Lord because she just loves helping people. And she's married to a youth pastor and associate pastor, Ray Teal. And he's just a real blessing to her and the family, and to have him, they met at Cedarville, and to have him in our family is just great.
Yeah.
And, you see how God has used those kids, and really I'm kind of embarrassed that I didn't use my life until later. I wished I'd have done it earlier like they're doing. And, but anyway, you can't.
But at the same time, you have, each of us have a different journey together,
we have a
right?
story.
We have a story.
Yes, everybody's story is different.
You wouldn't have the testimony you have if you didn't go through not that you'd wish anything on anybody, but you wouldn't have your story,
That's exactly right.
if you didn't, go down that road. And so it's really neat to see where God's brought you and how God's helped you build a family. Just like I'm sure you're gonna mention Will and his journey, but just to see what God's doing in their lives. So, what about Will?
He's how old is Will?
When you start having three, I know, I
Will's
understand.
23,
and
he'll be 24 in August. But anyway, he went to Cedarville as well. And he's a mechanical engineer up in Columbus.
That's tremendous.
And
very intelligent guy.
He of course he went through the church, and I that network of people back in Kids Connection, and the families, and just how they've influenced their lives is great. And then of course he ended up marrying Katie Newland, who also went to Porterfield, and they have been married just a little over a year now, and she's a nurse up in Columbus, and she is just a tremendous blessing to the family, and just having her and the families.
Well, some of the things you worry about with your kids is what kind of people they're going to find, or what the kind of people they're going to be with, and it's really neat that both of them were willing to wait for that person.
Yeah.
And really sought for that person, so that's tremendous.
And it's interesting because Hannah Ray, I think, was the first person that she had ever really dated, and same with Will. Katie's the first person that he'd ever really kind of dated, So
now there's a lot of pressure on Nathan.
Yeah, there is. There is a lot of pressure. There is a lot of pressure.
But even Nathan, he's a blessing too. I mean,
yeah, he is.
I'll let you talk a little bit about him, but I've definitely noticed that he's got some, really he's wise for his youth. He's got some wisdom there, and it's neat to see him be a part of the praise band and stuff.
Yeah,
and sing.
Yeah. The great thing is all three of the kids have accepted Christ, and
Amen.
And they have learned early and how Christ has come into their heart. They not only have a head knowledge, but a heart knowledge of who Christ is, and they really do that. But Nathan, he's graduated high school, and he went to the Career Center, heavy equipment. He was able to get his CDL before he graduated high school. And
I remember being here at the church and just seeing him already being in all kinds of vehicles when he was just a little guy.
Well, Tana,
he loved that stuff.
I remember Tana, she told me she was going to turn me into child services because I had him out mowing when he was 6 years old. and Will was 9, and I rigged up a shoulder harness or a weed eater strap on him so he could go out and weed eat. She's like, "You've got to be nuts." But anyway, they're okay. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. They're fine.
They haven't lost any toes or fingers.
That's right. Yeah. And so anyway, the Nathan, he's searching, not for the Lord, but just searching the Lord's direction in his life. And I think that's just awesome.
Absolutely.
And, where I think I kind of struggled on my own, I believe he is really seeking the Lord in the way he should be. And, of course, we talked to him a good bit. Our household has always been really open. So we have that open line of communication with our kids, and
that's what I was going to talk to you about, was what would be some of the things you'd like to pass on to others as far as how to raise godly kids. And I think that's one of the keys, having open conversation, because you don't want to shut down conversation. There are difficult things that some parents probably don't want to talk about with their kids, but it's necessary, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've always believed, Tana and I, that we want our kids to hear about things before they hear them at school. And so we have always been really open with a lot of things, to our kids. I would rather for my kids to hear about it and hear the right and wrong in the home before they go to school and hear it from their friends. And then you have to, explain to them why it's right and wrong, and
so you guys did a lot of things to kind of head that off then, trying to get ahead of it.
Yeah, I think we did. And the other thing we do a lot as family. I mean, I want to be involved in my kid's life. And, you know, we, growing up, the kid, anyway, Tawn and I have always had supper together. And so when the kids come along, every evening we had supper. And that time around that supper table, even when you get done eating, we would sit there and talk, just talk about each other's day. And that's when we, shared with each other our highs and lows of the week or the day. And, when things are bothering us and and the other thing is praying with the kids and just modeling what a Christ-like life is. And I think that's very powerful and kids are smart. I think they really know if you're wishy-washy and stuff. And so
They can see through that.
They can see through that really easy.
Yeah.
And so you need to be consistent as a parent.
Sounds like you guys have tried to be fair to each one of them too.
Yeah.
Like you don't treat one better than the other, and you love them all.
Well, they're all different.
Yeah.
You can't.
Isn't that amazing?
They are.
That's
It
a miracle right there, that you can have totally different people come from the same two parents, and
That's
they're totally
right.
different kids.
They're totally different. And you kind of got to learn those kids and how to work with them and develop with them.
Yeah.
And so you just
That is a real key. It's like you adjust your parenting just based on each child, because there is different needs there that need to be met, and there's different struggles that they face, each one of them.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Well, if somebody would be listening to this, or even just asking the general question, what would you like for people to take from your life and learn from it so that they would move forward in their relationship with Christ? What would you like people to say about you, or just take notice of your life?
That's a very good question. And, just thinking about it, that's a tough question. And, but what I would like for somebody to look at me and not see me, and not see me and my flaws and wrong things that I do, because I know that I still stumble and fall and I don't do things right. But I hope they look at me and see Christ and not Roger Heft. I know it's probably hard to do, but that's what I'd like for people to see. And, just saying that, the verse I got a Bible verse that has always really meant a lot to me. And it's, it's a common verse, and everybody really should know. It's Proverbs 3, 5 and 6. Yeah. And it's trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not unto your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path.
Yeah.
And I think if somebody was watching this and they applied those two verses into their life, God will not fail. So,
well, you have a tremendous story, and I know we just scratched the surface today, but is there anything else that you'd like to maybe say that you didn't get a chance to say?
Yeah, Eric, there's a lot of stuff. We could talk a lot. I look back and, my goodness, all the things that I have done and probably could have died. And
God protected you.
I've been close to dying, I'm sure, several times. And
So we talking about car wrecks or?
Well,
you know?
yeah, I've been in several car wrecks, yeah, but not super bad ones.
Uh-huh.
But, well, just let me think. It was probably in 2017.
Uh-huh.
I had went 19 years without a motorcycle because
Is this the motorcycle that you just went and bought one time?
yes, yes, it is. And anyway, when Tana and I got married, I had one, and we rode a little bit. Well, when we had kids, it's kind of like, it's probably not a good thing to do. So I sold my motorcycle, and that was tough to do. But anyway, I bought a motorcycle. I don't know if we have time to tell that story or not, but anyway, I bought a motorcycle, and I really liked this motorcycle a lot, probably more than I should have. And
It was verging on that. Is it too high up on the?
I'll tell you what,
list?
yes, it was high on the list. And I had even pictured myself already planning trips on this motorcycle, in my mind.
Yeah.
And I caught myself like trying to figure out when would be the best time for me to go ride my motorcycle, when it at least impacted the family, so I could have that motorcycle time. But anyway,
You had to work it in your schedule.
I
so-
did, and I really liked this motorcycle, but I think it was too high on the priority list, and it was my birthday, and I rode it to work that day, and a guy at work come up to me, and he said, "Hey, you want to go for a motorcycle ride this evening?" I said, "Yeah, it'd be perfect." Said, "Tana's going to make me birthday dinner," and I said, "About an hour. I have about an hour." And I said, "We can make the quick loop, go to Little Hocking, ride out 555 to Bartlett, and then come into Barlow, and I could go go out to the house there, and he could come on into town, go home himself." But anyway, we got about halfway out 555, and I went around a turn, and the bike just went down on me. And as I was sliding across the road, there was a big cable truck coming. And when I went off the road, I ducked my head because I thought the bumper of the truck was going to hit me in the head. And I hit the bank, and anyway, I ended up down the ditch. I don't know, maybe 100 feet, 150 feet, and I was sitting in the ditch just like I'm sitting in this chair.
Really?
And I kind of come to, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what just happened?" And and I'm starting to move stuff, and I'm like, "Well, I'm all intact." And got up, and I was fine. Well, I tried to ride the motorcycle back home, but the fender was against the tire, and it was smoking really bad. And I got up to Staley's meat packing processing now, and pulled into their parking lot. It was Veterans Crossing then. I pulled in their parking lot, sitting there, trying to figure out how I was going to get back home. Well, I heard this guy's voice, and I recognized it, and here it was a fella that had retired from the plant, and he had lived just across the street from where we were sitting. He heard us and saw a couple motorcycles over there. Well, he come over and started talking, told him what had happened. He said, "Well, I'll take you home." He said, "That's no problem." So he got me back to the house and stuff. But anyway, yeah, that was just a really close call.
Yeah.
And I remember going into work the next day, and I told the guys that I worked with, I said, "Hey, man," I said, God really spared my life last
So
night.
you didn't have any scratches?
I was skinned a little bit.
Yeah, but nothing broken?
No, nothing.
Oh.
Well, I might have had a broken wrist, but I never had it looked at. Yeah, it gives me trouble today. So
Okay.
anyway, but the next day I went to work, told them guys, hey, God spared my life last night, and I remember telling the story, and this guy looked at me and he said, yeah, that's just one time of how many other times that you don't know of.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that is so true.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then,
we always wonder why God's not intervening in certain situations, but we fail to see all the times that God does
Yeah.
intervene.
yeah, just go out and jump in your car.
Yeah.
Go home tonight.
Yeah.
But anyway, it, and I could sit here and tell you story after story after story how God has spared my life multiple times.
Well, can we have one more before we end? And was it a plant one, or was there one that was dealing with work?
Oh yeah.
No? It was just crazy stuff you were doing.
Just crazy stuff that I was doing. And when you asked me that about work or whatever, the one that popped into my mind was I just about had my feet crushed off.
Oh wow!
Yeah, with a crane outrigger, and I was at work, and me and another fellow went down to do a job. And we had a little carry deck crane. I say little as it's a 30,000-pound crane.
Yeah, so not
and that is little for a crane, but anyway, it's a carry deck crane, and anyway, we went down and set it up on it to do a quick little job, and somehow we got our wires crossed on what we were really thinking of doing. I thought he was going to raise the boom up and travel forward with the crane, but he raised the boom up, and for whatever reason, he run the outriggers down. Well, I just so happened to be standing right at the corner of the crane where those steel outriggers were coming down. And, I'm standing there looking up in the pipe rack thinking he's going to start moving forward and raising the boom. And all of a sudden I feel this pressure on my feet, and I could feel my boots flattening out, and the bones in my feet started popping.
Oh no!
And I'm just like, and I'm hitting a crane, pounding on the crane. We were in a really high noise area. And I remember I wasn't very far from him, maybe 8 feet, but between me and him was the turret of the boom of the crane. So we couldn't really make eye contact.
Yeah.
And I'm beating on the crane, a big solid chunk of steel. And I wasn't making any noise. I was just hurting my arm on that crane. And I just thought my feet were just going to get smashed off. And the next thing I thought, oh, God, help me.
Yeah.
And about that time, that guy looked out around that turret of the crane. I was like, raise the outriggers, So he raised the outriggers. And it was just like, oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
And I could still walk. And I was, they were hurting. Anyway, we ended up getting up to the maintenance shop, and I was afraid to take my boots off because I didn't know what I was going to see. I was thinking it'd just be a stub there. But anyway, one of the guys cut my shoelaces off and kind of opened my boot up, and I started kind of slipping my boot off, and I was like, feels all right. So I got my boot off, and my foot was still there. It was black and blue, and real
from the pressure.
Red. Yeah, from the pressure, and red and everything. But the only thing I got out of that was that God spared my feet, and I got 2 broken bones in my left foot, and then today I have a lot of arthritis. And so every morning when I get out of bed, I know that my feet have been crushed, but it's a daily reminder of how God spared me.
Yeah.
And multiple times over my life, I can say that. So
Well, that's,
it's
again, like
just a real blessing.
you have some tremendous stories of where God's spared you, protected you.
No, it's just,
It's really cool. And
Yes.
you really have a great testimony of that. And I know that's fueled your faith even further, right? It's helped you to keep,
yeah.
you kind of understand what's important, even with the motorcycle kind of creeping up.
Yeah, they totaled the motorcycle too.
That's
Yeah, and it took me 2 months to let them come and get it. Yeah.
Because you didn't want to part with it.
No, I did not want to part with it.
Well, I really appreciate your time. Is there any last comment of what Porterfield, this local body of believers, has meant to you? I know it's hard to sum that up too, but what would you say that maybe would be some words that you would use to describe your time here at Porterfield?
Life changing, and you get out of something of what you put into it, and if you come to church, you slip into church, and you slip out before anybody can talk to you. There's a lot more blessing here than just coming to church on Sunday and checking the box.
That's
You know,
fair.
I'm not saying it's Porterfield, but God can change your life.
Absolutely.
Letting Christ into your heart, control your mind, and letting Him have control of your life, He changes it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I appreciate it. It's been good. I appreciate you and your family. You guys mean a lot to me and mean a lot to the church here.
I appreciate you.
You guys have been faithful. Well, thank you.
My kids, it seems like a lot of times your kids come up at my house, my kids really think a lot of your kids.
Well, thank you.
And, but anyway, I think it was Nathan that said that he thinks that our family dynamics are a lot the same. And, just,
Well, like you said,
I don't know if they are or not because I've never,
one thing that we've
but
actually,
they have seen, they've been to your house and been around your kids and been around you guys, and then they see that, I guess, at home.
well, one of the things we try to do too is we would like to have a meal together, and we like to sit at the table and converse and talk. And I think that's important to have that fellowship time.
Yeah. Having that family time. It's very important.
And prayer's always been an important thing. And
prayer's always been.
We did what we call God time. I don't know if you guys had God time. I'm sure you did, because I know you guys even do an Advent thing during Christmas, your whole family, which is neat. So, but thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Eric.
God bless you.
Yeah, God bless you.
Appreciate it.